Um, okay, start talking.
Hello, it's Keith Martin, Executive Director for the Consortium of Universities for Global Health, and welcome to CUGH's webinar on Centralized Application Systems with Liaison International. What we found at CUGH is because of the incredible growth and explosion of global health programs, we thought that there might be a way to ensure that there's a greater ease in the application process for applicants and a greater ease for schools to be able to process those applicants. So what we were exploring with this webinar is to share with you what a centralized application system is, what the benefits are to both applicants and schools, and hope that this will be an opportunity for you to learn more about centralized application systems, and we hope this becomes a benefit that we can provide to our members. Joining us today from Liaison International is Ron Hyman. He's the Executive Director for Associations and Partnerships, and Robert Ruiz, Vice President of Client Success. Liaison International is a world-renowned organization that has a great deal of experience in providing centralized application systems for professional schools. So with that, I will turn this over to Ron Hyman, and thank you very much for joining us. Ron, over to you.
Thank you, Keith. I appreciate the introduction and allowing us the opportunity to meet with these schools today. Just a quick check, make sure that my screen is displaying correctly. If it's not, I'll ask my colleague Robert to let me know, but I assume that it looks full screen on everybody so that it's easy to see. Again, thank you all for your time today. We're excited today to be able to share with you what is the centralized application service that Liaison has been working with many, many different disciplines over the past 25 years, and what potentially this could do for global health programs. Many of you today on the call may be familiar with what a CAS is, as we like to call it. In fact, many of you, as I look at the attendee list, have many CAS already being used by many programs on campuses today. I want to make sure that this is, we're very clear that this is meant to be an information session for global health programs to understand what a CAS is, and as we continue conversations with CUGH and schools to see if this is something appropriate for them, this is by no means a replacement for any of our other national CASs, specifically the Schools of Public Health Application Service known as SOFAS, and many of other national CASs that are already on your campuses today. With that being said, let me do a brief introduction. My name is Ron Hyman. I am responsible for partnerships here at Liaison. Been at Liaison for a couple of years, and I'm responsible for all of the new centralized application services that we're putting forward, and we have done over the last couple of years since I've been on board. You're going to hear a lot more about our capabilities and the disciplines we've been serving with our CAS over the last couple of decades. I do have about 12 years in higher ed. I've known the folks at Liaison for about 10 years, and I'm super excited to be part of that family. I'm very, very excited to be able to introduce my colleague, Robert Ruiz, who is Vice President of Client Success. I'll let Robert introduce himself and then pass it back to me, and you'll be hearing from Robert a little bit later. Robert?
Thank you, Ron, and good afternoon, everyone, and a special thanks to the team at CUGH for putting together today's webinar. As Ron mentioned, I'm Robert Ruiz, Vice President for Client Success here at Liaison. Excuse me. I joined Liaison about 2 years ago. Prior to that, spent about 30 years in higher education, specifically enrollment management. I've had a number of great opportunities at places like Tulane University, Oklahoma State University. Also, with this organization, Liaison, I've worked closely over the years establishing and building a couple of centralized application services, and in fact have consulted in about 10 of them through the years. Most recently, before joining Liaison, I spent 10, almost 11 years as Dean of Admission at the University of Michigan Medical School, which is my home, my alma mater, and now where my 2 sons and tuition dollars go. So with that, Ron, I'll give it back to you.
Okay, thanks, Robert. Appreciate that. Hopefully the screen looks bigger now. I think it was a little bit smaller before, but hopefully everybody can see that. Let me review the agenda for today's webinar. I'll take you through an overview of Liaison, who we are, where we've been, all the exciting things that we've done, introduce the folks on the webinar today to a centralized application service, what it is, what are the benefits. I'll then kick it back over to Robert, who can go through and discuss the applicant experience and the administrative experience. A tough word, I guess, for me today. And then we'll kick it over to Robert to moderate some Q&A, and we'll discuss any next steps. So that's the agenda for today, and without further ado, I'll go right into the overview of Liaison. I think it's really helpful to take a look at who we are by looking at the numbers and such. We provided Liaison by the numbers here. As I mentioned a couple of times, we've been around for over 2 decades, founded in 1991. We started working way back when with American Dental Education Association, who had a need for putting together an application service for their program, and that really was the foundation for what we've done, and you're going to see in this presentation. Today, we are a little north of 275 employees, continuing to grow almost every month. We're headquartered just outside of Boston in Watertown, Massachusetts, and have 3 other locations, 2 in New York, 1 in D.C., and at the end of the day, we really are admissions and enrollment specialists, and you'll see that coming through hopefully in the presentation. On the left-hand side, I love to start at the top and drill down. We process over 1 million applications for all the different disciplines that we service today. And as I mentioned before, many of you already have CAS operating today on your campuses. We have over 5,200 programs that utilize one of our CAS or many of our CAS. We are on over 800 campuses, and we have, proud to say that we have 99% retention. Occasionally there's a program that drops out for whatever reason. Perhaps they're not accredited any longer, or they're just too small to warrant the need for a centralized application service, and they will drop out. We have over 30 partnerships, and we today have 38 different CAS in motion. We've got a couple more in play that will bring us into the low 40s come beginning of next year. And what's really important here is the 2+ decades of experience, that everything that we've done is really what we've learned from other disciplines and other CAS over the last 20+ years, which I think brings forward a really powerful solution to talk to you folks about today. Really, our tagline is all about first interest to first day on campus. We have put together a comprehensive solution that really does help with all the recruiting, the marketing, the attracting interested applicants to your particular program or school, and then how do we help them apply to the school. And so our software is really combined with services to put together this platform. And we really have 2 unique platforms that work together. The first that I'll mention is the CRM and marketing platform, which we call EMP, the Enrollment Marketing Platform, which is a powerful tool that is used to recruit, market, and provide individual information to those who have expressed interest in your particular school or program. We combine that with services around campaigns, outreach, print, because print is certainly not dead, to come together to create that EMP. Today, however, we're going to focus on the application part of that around the CAS. And it really is a combination of our admissions software that you'll see combined with services that we have operating out of our out of our numerous facilities. If you take a look at the centralized application services, this is a majority of the services that we have out there, and you can go through these and see that there are a lot in the health services space. That's certainly where we have our heritage, but in the last couple of years, we've started to branch out into other areas. So, for example, just recently we have launched Business CAS, or in the process of launching Business CAS for MBA programs with a partner out of London. We just met last week with folks in DC around architecture. We're going to be launching Arch CAS in the coming year. So this is important. You'll see, again, many of these may be used. I'll point out Sophis towards the bottom right. This is a good summary of the different CAS that we have in play today. And when you take a look at it, I mentioned that we're on over 800 campuses. We are certainly across the U.S., all 50 states, including District of Columbia, Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, and certainly many campuses in Canada are using our CAS and know of our CAS and benefiting from all the benefits. Taking a look at a little bit more detail around the centralized application, it certainly is the cornerstone of who we are at Liaison. We launched the first CAS for dental with our partner ADIA back in 1996. The 38, as I mentioned, are the number of CAS's deployment today. By this time next year, we will have another 5 or 6 added to that, and so we start reaching up into the 40s and really across many, many different types of disciplines. The solution that you're going to see and hear about today is a software as a service model. It makes it easy to use, easy to deploy, easy to create updates and upgrades and what have you, so it's very, very powerful. And what's really nice about this is that the application itself feeds into a powerful administrative tool called WebAdmit, which you'll see in a little bit from Robert, which is provided to all the schools at no charge for them just to participate. Some of the graphics you'll see there, CASPA is the CAS for physician assistants. You'll see social work CAS, nursing CAS. Many of these CASs have the same look and feel, although they do have the capability to tweak them a little bit with pictures and backgrounds and what have you. And we'll talk a little bit about more of that as we move forward. But that's a couple of screenshots of what you'll see in any centralized application service. So as we take a look at defining a CAS, what is a CAS? In short, a centralized application service is a portal that allows potential applicants to research and apply to one or many programs or schools within a defined affinity group or a certain discipline. It's powerful in that it allows the applicant to go in and really fill out one set of application requirements, but fill in unique requirements that may be required by each individual school, and Robert will talk a little bit more about that. The platform, or the picture that you're seeing here, I break it into a couple different points. The greenish color is everything that touches the applicant. This is the applicant's portal that he gets to go in or she gets to go in and research programs, see what are the requirements for all of the programs or schools that they're applying to. They'll get to submit their transcripts, any other supplemental information. They'll get to request their online references if that's required by a school or program. The blue, on the other hand, now is the administrator or the admissions portal that every program will have visibility to by participating in the program. In here, they'll get to go in and see all the applicants. They'll get to review all the applications. If there's any test scores that are required, you'll see that as I just click the next button here, we do have ties into third-party services such as test publishers. So if we need to pull in GRE scores or SAT scores, et cetera, we can pull those in automatically and verify them into the application. With this platform, we do a lot of verification, a lot of back-end services that really take the heavy lifting away from the schools and programs and allow them to focus on what they do best in their offices, and not the, as I say, the heavy lifting, not so much value type stuff as opening up transcripts, validating them, collating the applications, et cetera. So there's a lot of information that goes into this admissions portal that Robert will talk about, but understand that to make this as powerful it is, we've got relationships with, as I said, publishers, plagiarism software companies. We have relationships with foreign credential evaluators, such as World Education Services West in New York, as well as background check. So when you pull it all together, it really is a robust solution that allows applicants to apply to one or many programs, but also allows the admissions office to bring everything into a nice platform and do outreach. And again, Robert will touch on that as we move forward. I mentioned services. Our services are key to our platform. The software is very powerful, but without the services, it wouldn't really accomplish what we needed to. We have over 100 staff that are dedicated to customer service. They handle nearly 750,000 emails and phone calls every year. these aren't emails or phone calls, should I apply to this school? Do you think I'll get into this program? But rather, can you help me fill out this application? I don't understand this question. And we take a lot of those questions away from the schools or programs and handle it with our staff. I mentioned before we do transcript verification as part of our services. So our staff is highly trained for each discipline. So we'll have a team dedicated to SOFIS, for example, public health, to physician assistants, and they are very familiar with those applications. They're familiar with what the requirements are. Those are the folks that will go through and handle any questions. They'll do the transcript verification. We've got very powerful capabilities within the CAS to do GPA calculations. You could do GPA calculations 20 different ways. I need a math and science GPA. I need a non-math and science GPA. I need an overall GPA, for example. We also have rubric scoring that you can go through and create your own scoring that will weight how did they do in an interview, what's their GPA, what are their test scores. All of those types of things will weigh into, what's their overall score through the use of our rubrics metrics. And then finally, scanning and document processing. We process over a couple million documents a year. Official transcripts, for example, are brought in. We scan them. We send them off, and they're archived in our repository. And the documents are all available to the schools or programs through the WebAdmit software that I talked about, and you get to see all of those documents that were submitted. The benefits are really threefold here. There are benefits to applicants, to the schools, and to global health in general. For the applicants, and I've probably touched on a lot of these, it's one single application that you go into and allow you to apply to multiple schools. We find there's a huge time savings by doing this, where instead of maybe spending 10 hours per application, they're spending 10 hours on that initial application and maybe just an hour for each additional program. It's an easy-to-use interface that is efficiently used on mobile devices, whether it's a phone, an iPad, or a computer. They get to submit one set of documentation. So if I went to a couple different schools as part of my undergrad and I'm applying to 5 grad programs, I don't have to request 10 set of documents be sent out. I request one set of my transcripts. It gets put into the system. We verify they're official. We verify all the grades and what have you, and then we will send them off to the 5 schools or programs that they want to apply to. Again, this is available 24 hours a day. Mobile access is important, as we all know how mobile everybody is. And what's really neat about this is the updates. So an applicant will know when their letter of recommendation, for example, has been completed or when it hasn't even been started. They'll know what their status is with any school or program at any given time. They can simply log into the portal and get their updates. Of course, we are proactively sending out messages to let them know if something changes along the way. And this is really a key point, is that there's one point of contact for filling out all these applications, and we find that this is really taking a lot of the phone calls and the time associated with that away from the schools and giving them time to do other things. For the schools themselves, I mentioned a couple of times the software is free. There's no cost to implement. There's no cost to join. Just by participating as part of a CAS, they will actually get access to WebAdmit. We find from feedback from schools that they're getting more applicants. They're being exposed to a wider applicant pool. For example, an applicant may not have known that there was a certain program at school XYZ, and so they will see that as being part of this national CAS. Data is important both for schools and for global health in general, as you now get to benchmark yourself, your program, versus others. We don't necessarily allow comparing school to school, but will allow you to compare your school to a group of schools, perhaps 6 or 7 or more, or to a national average. You get to see what some of the trends are in the industry and how you compare. We're not looking to change any workflow on campus. This software tool, WebAdmit, is made to fit in with your workflow, so we're not looking to change that. In fact, we're looking to complement that workflow. And Robert will talk a little bit about how we can export information from WebAdmit into other information systems on campus, and it's very straightforward on how to do that. We find that this is a great platform to share best practices across the community of discipline like global health, and of course the time savings to the schools on us providing that customer support is invaluable. We actually have case studies on what that saves schools over the course of a year. And then as far as what does this mean for global health in general, we've seen a lot of benefits over the years with regards to analyzing data, being able to project workforce needs and workforce availability of those coming out of studies and what have you. The ability to provide a platform for collaboration amongst institutions is important. We see many disciplines now being able to collaborate where in the past they weren't able to efficiently. So, for example, where nursing has filled all their seats at a certain program, we now have collaboration where they can actually refer them over to another program nearby that has seats available at another school. And again, I think that what this does and what CUGH is interested in is how do we take this CAS and provide best practices out to all of their members. So that's really quick review of the benefits. Obviously, a lot more to talk about. We've got some great case studies that we've developed over the years on how this has helped schools, how it's helped disciplines overall, and we're excited to continue those conversations as we move forward. So with that being said, let me take a breather and pass this over to Robert, who's going to take us through the applicant experience.
Hi, Ron. Thank you. And again, thanks for everyone for joining. I'm going to talk a little bit about the applicant experience and then the administrator experience. As Ron mentioned, there are certainly a number of benefits to all of the stakeholders within a centralized application service, but want to explore for a moment the applicant's perspective. What Ron has put on the screen for us is the landing page for a standard centralized application service applicant portal. A couple of things to note at the onset. Logos, branding, imagery would all be done in collaboration with CUGH. So very important that we design and develop this product that is consistent with the existing trademarks, logos, branding, images that CUGH has developed to work, that has worked to develop over the years. But let me just give you a little bit of a tour here. We don't have time for a live demo. A live demo of the applicant portal itself could take upwards of an hour. So I want to spend probably just 6 or 7 minutes here talking through some of the key components. So again, would be customized relative to CUGH in terms of the look and feel. But if we start in the top right-hand corner, you see an individual's name and the ability to sign out, Whitney Demo in this case. We'll just make the point that each individual has an opportunity to create an account and then enter and leave the application as many times as they'd like. Not surprisingly, you do not have to finish the application in one sitting. You can come back as many times as you like and work on the application and complete the various components. The question mark is symbolizing help. The students or the applicants can click on that and get a phone number to call our help desk, which is open, as Ron mentioned, throughout the week and extended hours and weekends at times for applicants to get a live person on help. They have email help. We also will have chat help beginning this fall. So we really do provide full service assistance to the applicants and want them to have as good an experience as possible completing this application. Reiterating Ron's point, the work they are doing is simply to help the applicants complete the application. We are not in the business of advising applicants, suggesting which programs to apply, but rather helping the applicant navigate the application should they have any questions. You see a bell with a number 2. The application is pretty responsive, meaning, and interactive, meaning that we have the ability to communicate with applicants on a regular basis via email, text message if they opt in, and even phone call to alert them of upcoming deadlines, materials they may be missing, or otherwise communicate with the applicant through that respective process. If we go across the ribbons or the tabs on the top, My Application, which is the page that you see, we'll talk through that in just a moment. Add Program is the opportunity for the student to see a list of all of the existing and participating programs, and then to make designation selections. So they can see that there are programs available in the state of California, East Coast, West Coast. We have some ways in which we can filter them based on potentially concentration. These are the kind of discussions we'd have going forward as we configured the specific applicant portal. Submit application lets me know that I've submitted 0 applications. Again, I could submit 2 today. I could decide later that I want to add 2 more programs, and submit them as well. Check status, as the name implies, allows me to check my status for each of my materials within each of my programs. So if I've applied to 10 programs, I can check my status with each of those 10 programs to see what documents I'm missing or where I stand within the respective admission processes. So again, I think Ron mentioned it, but worth reiterating, the applicants really appreciate the fact of having all of this information in a central location. As a former admission dean, I know that we always want to make this experience as intuitive and as easy as possible for the applicants to access their data and information. On the left, under my application, excuse me, are the notifications. I simply call this the notification channel. This is a dynamic area where anytime we want to update the applicant with a new activity, we can let them know via this channel. So in this example, we can see that we welcome them after they create an account on August 31st, and we also can see that on 9/3 that we've submitted an evaluator request. And I'll mention here that from within the application, the applicants can request their letters of evaluation. So just to give you an idea of that process, if I wanted Ron Hyman to write me a letter of recommendation, I would go into my application, enter Ron's name, contact information, and email. The system would generate an email and information to Ron telling him that I'm requesting him to write me a letter of recommendation to a global health program. I have the opportunity to give him specific notes or direction. Ron would write that application and upload it to the system. I would not see it, but I would get notification that Ron has completed that task on my behalf. You see 4 squares. We call these the 4 quadrants or the quadrant approach. Things we've learned from applicants over the years, and we poll applicants every year. We do focus groups. We do usability studies. So we're always trying to make sure the interface and the application is intuitive and easy to use. What applicants really like is the idea of knowing where they stand. So for example, in personal information, we know that this applicant has completed 3 of the 5 required sections and that the fuel gauge is about 3/5 of the way full. Contrasted to program materials, where the student has done 1 of 3 required tasks, the fuel gauge is 1/3 of the way full. Once the tasks in any particular quadrant become complete, that fuel gauge fills to green, and this area in the center turns green, and the check mark is highlighted within each. So applicants seem to like these small details that really let them know what additional work they have to do. Won't go through each section in detail, but personal information, as you can imagine, is personal information. Name, first name, last name, email address, phone numbers, excuse me, information such as residency in the United States or otherwise. As Ron mentioned, we do have the capacity to manage international applicants. Other personal information that we'd like to collect. So we have a number of question blocks and best practices, but we work with your group, and Ron will talk more about how we do this via an advisory group later. But we will come with some questions prepared, and then you'll help us determine which ones you want. So again, name, address, email, etc., and personal information. Academic history is where we would collect the individual's academic background, where they attended college, high school if you'd like, graduate school if necessary, as well as any other academic or certificate programs. This would be their opportunity to tell you the degrees they've earned, the subjects they've studied, and we can even do course-by-course entry for the student. So the student could actually list every single course, which then gives us the data to produce those GPAs Ron talked about earlier. So academic history, again, is the student's academic background. Supporting information will be additional requirements for the applicant, such as letters of evaluation, standardized test scores, personal statements or essays. If you required any kind of certificates or licensure or proof of such, that would be in supporting information. CVs, resumes, abstracts might all be included under supporting information. Those first 3 quadrants, personal information, academic history, and supporting information, are what we call the root application or the fixed components. This means that they are the same and the applicant only need answer them once, without regard to how many programs he or she is selecting. So, in more plain English, these sections don't change. They're set and standardized, thus the name, the Centralized Application Service. However, the fourth quadrant, program materials, as the name implies, is where you have the opportunity to do whatever you'd like. So if you're Tulane University and you want students to upload a Louisiana driver's license that's only important to you at Tulane, you can ask students to do that in your section. If you're my alma mater, the University of Michigan, and you want proof of Michigan residency, that's important in your process, you can ask students to upload those documents. They would only be required to do that for the University of Michigan designations, and only the University of Michigan would see those documents. So the program materials really is your section, your opportunity to ask whatever you want. It's not uncommon to ask for programs or schools to ask applicants, why are you interested specifically in my program, or to answer some additional questions about legacy. Are you an alumni of this institution? Have you attended other programs? So this is really the best of both worlds. You get all of the required requisite data that you need in admissions, and I need it as an admission dean, name, address, email, grade, scores, letters of evaluation. But I also get the flexibility and configurability to do as I please in the program material section and ask the applicants for any additional information that's relevant to me at my respective program. So it's really a very, very robust application, one that's gotten strong reviews both from applicants and back-end programs and users, because it really can be tailored to meet the needs of any specific program. So again, I think that's very helpful. I'm going to ask Ron to go on to the next slide to show you the administrator experience. Would remind the group that Ron and I are happy to take questions, as are the folks from CUGH, and to use the text box, and we'll field those here in about the next 8 to 10 minutes or so. What Ron has put up now is WebAdmit. WebAdmit is our administrative software to manage applications. So WebAdmit is our product name, and what you're seeing is a landing page of a test site that an administrator or user might see. So I've switched gears here from moving to what the applicants see and what they do to now what an admission user or a program administrator would see. So for example, if I happen to be a program administrator at the University of Michigan, this is what I might log into to see and manage the applicants who have applied to my programs. Couple of opening comments about WebAdmit. Each instance of WebAdmit is customized to each CAS. So although it's a wonderful admission management tool, we do it one better by making it customized to your particular discipline. So even though we have an instance of WebAdmit for medicine and dentistry and podiatry and chiropractic medicine and nursing and physical therapy, and they look similar, the fact is they're all different because they've been configured specifically for the needs of those respective disciplines. So we've got a lot of configurability power in this tool. This is a site with a lot going on, a little bit difficult to talk to, but again, a full demo would take an hour, but let me try and just give you an overview here of what's happening. On the left are what I call the tasks or the menu. Gives you an opportunity to perform a whole bunch of tasks within the software. I'll come back and highlight a couple of those. In the middle are what I would call your notification channels. And by the way, you can see those arrows, some pointing down, some pointing to the right. That simply means you can collapse or expand as many of these channels as you'd like. In my day, I usually had about 3 channels that I'd want to keep open, and then another 4 or 5 that I would collapse and just open when I wanted to view them. This is a dynamic system, which means as we take new applicants, we're pushing them automatically to the system. So if I run a report at 8 a.m. asking for all applicants, I might get 100. If I run the same report at 5 p.m., I might get 150, which means throughout that day there were 50 new applicants for my particular program. On the right are what we call designations and statuses. A lot of colors going on here. We do give you the full color palette to work with, but Ron mentioned that we don't want to impose or prescribe a workflow to you. The beauty of this tool is that it allows you to take your existing workflow and embed it within this software. Thus, if you have a 30-step admission process, you can replicate it here. If you have a 5-step process, you can replicate it here. At Michigan, I had a process where I would sort applicants into Michigan residents and non-residents. Then from there, might sort them based on grades and scores. Then from there, might sort them based on county of residence, by academic major, and so on. And I might assign them each a different status. Hold this group for MCAT scores. Hold this group for GRE scores. Hold this group for a second faculty review. And I can color code all of them so that I can see really in real time where all my applicants are. And I can make this as complex as I want. And I've seen folks set up their system with 50 or 60 local statuses. I've seen people run this with 3. So it's really up to you. You'll notice that, for example, this one is telling us there are, let's see, 574 applicants that have been rejected that are not qualified. I could click on that number and it would open up a list of those 575 applicants. Then I could click on an applicant and drill down into his or her particular record. So very powerful. And then on the bottom, you see designations by status: in progress, received, verified. These are different statuses that we use as a service to tell you where the application currently stands. It's also important to note that you see in this example there are 209 in-progress applicants. As soon as an applicant creates an account and enters his or her name and email and designates an interest in your program, even if they haven't done all of the other required sections, we'll make their contact information available to you. As a former admission dean, this was very important because then I could do communication, I could run communications directly to those students through this tool. On the left, let me just point out a couple of things here that you can do. First thing I would say is permission users. We'll assign at each institution a super user, and then he or she will be able to permission additional users. You can make someone another super user, which means they can see every screen and run every function. Or you can limit what an individual sees to simply one tab. In my case, I wanted the dean just to see the dashboard to let him know how many total applicants we had, how many were in progress, etc. He did not have the ability to drill down into each applicant, certainly did not have the ability to change the status for applicants or make lists or so on. So this is an incredibly powerful tool. We have, again, institutions that have 5 users. We have other institutions that have 500 users because their faculty do their reviews online. Ron mentioned local GPAs, prerequisites. We can measure prerequisites here. We can do local GPAs if you want to create your own. You can do an algorithm to create scoring, give an applicant 10 points if they're from the state of Michigan, 10 points if their GPA is above a 3.5. Again, these are all tools. You choose the ones you use. You don't have to use them. A couple of the most popular features are assignments. I can take 10 applicants, electronically assign them to Ron, give him a due date, and restrict what he sees to those 10 applicants and ask him to review them and comment on them as part of the process. This is web-based, so there's no software to install on your desk or laptop. We don't come to campus. We give you the appropriate logins and permissions. Emails, we can do batch emails. Thank you for creating an account. Thank you for applying, reviewing your file. You can do personalized admission letters with your school logos, branding, digital signatures. And the last thing I'll say about this is training. I believe we can make you a baseline competent user in about 1 day of training. This is not a 6-week training or a 6-month training. We have lots of training resources. We have regional trainings. We have an online training course. We have regularly scheduled webinars. And like the applicant portal, we have a live help desk for folks you can call if you're asking for help. This software typically is in the market for $30,000 or $40,000 or $50,000 a year. It's part of the service provided to our CAS members. So again, there's some cost savings here. Ron, move us forward. I'm going to go through 3 slides in about 90 seconds and then give it back to Ron. Unfortunately, I'm only going to give you 90 seconds of data collection analysis because in some ways this is perhaps the most important one of the most important outcomes of a CAS is the data that you get, both at the school or program level and certainly at the national or the discipline level. We've got a whole bunch of tools. What you're looking at is visual analytics and Tableau. So we can look at applications week over week, year over year. For me, this was very powerful. I could see how many applicants we had the first week of September for each of the past 4 cycles and how we were trending up or down. I could drill down to see the composition of those applicants, Michigan residents versus non, male versus female, any kind of categorization I wanted, biology majors versus psychology, those with a GPA above 3.0 versus below. So a very, very powerful report. Ron will go on to the next slide, which is a heat map. Always like this one. It tells me where my applicants are coming from by state. Again, I can drill down there and I can say, all right, I see 119 are coming from New York. I'd like to see how that compares to the last 5 years from New York. And I'd like to see what institutions in New York that represents. So a lot of power here that can help you set recruitment and marketing strategies. And then Ron, the next one, same idea, but this one is doing a heat map by country. Particularly helpful if you have students who are from outside the United States or are looking to explore international markets. As Ron mentioned, we can do some comparative reports. So we can see the discipline as a whole had 1,000 applicants from Mexico. Am I getting any applicants from Mexico? Why or why not? So a lot of data here to be mined and to be used. We're getting to the question and answer period, so I'm going to turn it back over to Ron. There is one question that came in that I'll go ahead and field because it fits in here. It's about training. I alluded to that. But yes, these are powerful tools. We are going to give you training absolutely every step of the way. We stand up these national services pretty regularly, and we can get folks moving and trained in online pretty quickly, typically a matter of weeks. This is not a 6 or a 9 month process. Candidly, my experience is sometimes it takes a little longer on the institution side. Your program materials page, we can stand that up very quickly, but it does require an image. And my experience at universities is sometimes that image has to be approved by a number of stakeholders and so on. So literally, we can move as quickly as you can and get users trained up and moving pretty quickly. So Ron, a little bit over, but hopefully there was some good stuff there. Looks like we've got about 17 minutes or so for questions or discussion.
Yep, thanks, Robert. I appreciate you taking us through that. So at this point, if people have any questions on what they've seen thus far, feel free to type it into the question area on your screen, and that will actually pop up. Robert, you're moderating the questions, I believe. So if anything else comes in, you can let us know. Robert, anything thus far?
I don't see anything yet, Ron, and well, actually a couple looks like one has come in and maybe some others may be on the way. But what I would say, Ron, is I know a common question. I'll ask you to field this question. Implementation timeline. Moving forward, let's say this is a great idea, people are interested, and I'm at an institution or school. How long does it take me to really get online, and is this doable, and what's your experience been in getting these projects off the ground?
Yeah, that's a good question that we get a lot, Robert. So implementation can vary. It depends on how quickly we put together our advisory committee. Those are the ones that are going to really be those that will help us excuse me, determine what the CAS looks like, what the root components or fixed requirements of all of the applications look like. That actually can take 30 to 60 days to put that together. But once we gather the requirements, we generally can build the CAS in 2-3 months, make it available in a playground for schools to start beginning to get their feet wet with what it looks like, and then we start doing onboarding for programs. So when it's all said and done, I would say on the short side, it's a 6-month process. On the longer side, maybe 10 months. So 6 to 10 months from start to finish. And of course, it's not just all busy all day doing that from everybody's perspective, it's a lot of requirements gathering and waiting for images, as Robert said, to be approved and meeting with that advisory committee and what have you. But we love when we have a 10-month runway to launch a CAS. But in general, 6 to 10 months, Robert. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Ron. A question has come in, Ron, that I'll direct to you. Two-part question. What is the cost to applicants? And part two is, what is the cost to schools?
Yep, I'd be surprised if we didn't get this question, and actually if we didn't, we would have been proactive and addressed it anyway. The economics on this system are pretty straightforward. It's been the same financial model we've had in place for 25 years, and it's pretty easy to grasp. It's no cost to the schools to participate. They become active in the system. They get their program listed under that particular CAS, and they get the WebAdmit software that Robert showed you at no cost, just being a partner of the program, being a participant of the program. There's no cost, just to take it to the third party, there's no cost to CUGH to be a partner and to have us create this CAS. And I guess that leaves the applicants. And what we do is we have processing fees that we will ask the applicants to cover. Typically, it's a set fee for their first application or designation to be submitted, and then second, third, and all subsequent applications will be have a processing fee that's generally 50% of the initial fee. Those fees can vary from discipline to discipline. It really has a lot of factors that go into it. One big factor is how much work is Liaison putting into the service part of this to be able to satisfy the needs for that particular discipline. So just to give you some ideas, we have on the low side, nursing CAS is in the $50 to $60 range for the first designation, and about half of that for all subsequent. On the dental side, which I believe is the most expensive because of all the work that goes into processing those are upwards of $230, $240 for the first designation, and then again discounted for all subsequent ones. And so we have found that model is accepted. Robert, I don't know if you have any numbers off the top of your head, but I know we've done some surveys with applicants after they've gone through the cycle and asked them, was the processing fee justified by the services that you got out of the CAS itself? And so that is the financial model that has been in use for well over 20 years. Hopefully that provides enough information to whoever asked the question.
Yeah, it's a great answer, Ron. Thank you. And to Ron's point, this is one of those areas that we're very cognizant of the demand. And as we start any new service, and to give you some idea, we've started recently several new services, psychology, social work, architecture is coming on board. One of the things we've typically done is polled applicants in advance, those that are in their first year of existing programs, and asked them if such a service existed, would they have been willing to pay a fee to use it to expedite their process. And our responses typically are somewhere between 97 and 99% of applicants say they'd absolutely have paid to use such a service, because as you can imagine in the existing model, we are essentially asking applicants to complete the same data sets 3 or 4 or 5 times and then visit 3 or 4 or 5 different unique sites to complete their existing work. So great answer, Ron. Ron, 2 questions. I'll give them both to you, and I'm happy to help with the second one. But related to cost is, what is the cost savings to students, or how do students benefit then from such a model? And then the second one is, the second question that came in is, ASPPH has a CAS so fast. Is there a conflict in using both? I'm happy to have you lead that off, and then I can certainly chime in as well. So question 1 is savings to the students. How do they actually realize benefit? And then second, the existence of SOFAST and the interplay there.
Sure. So starting with the first one, savings to students or applicants actually come in 2 flavors. One would be time savings, and the second could be a potential cost savings. The time savings, I think, is pretty evident going through, and I think I alluded to this earlier, is filling out one root application with any supplemental information or program-specific information is a huge time savings. Also being able to dial one phone number and look at one location for all of their status is a huge saving. So there's a lot of time saving that comes with using a CAS. On the cost side, certainly there's the processing fees that I just talked about, but what we do find is that some students will come back to us and report back that they save a lot of money on transcripts. So transcripts aren't generally free from undergrad programs, and sometimes if you're looking for them to be overnighted, they can be $40, $50 per transcript. You're looking to send out 5 or 6 of those. It can be quite expensive. So I'm not going to sit here on the phone and say that we save every applicant dollars per se. We can definitely tell them we save them time, but some applicants actually do realize a cost savings. As regards to ASPPH, certainly they have a CAS SOPIS, the Schools of Public Health Application Service, and we are very aware that there is some overlap with some of the schools on the phone today and many others within the CUGH family, and we want to be careful that we do not step on the toes of what's been working very successfully for years. I will say this, is that we communicate with our friends over at ASPPH all the time. They know that we're on this phone call with you folks. They know we've been meeting with Keith and team, and so we are very careful of how we proceed. We would never do anything to hurt another CAS. With that being said, we want to hear, what are the requirements of some of the schools on here? If there's not an overlap with SOPIS, certainly we want to be able to satisfy those needs, but we are aware that there could be potential conflicts as we move forward. Robert, anything to add to the SOPIS question?
I think you've covered it, Ron. Again, I would just reiterate that, we've had a long-standing relationship with ASPPH as well as others in the environment, and we certainly want to coexist and collaborate, and I think Ron really covered that. Ron, last thing I see here, I don't see any more questions. I want to make sure we give it to Keith to wrap us up for 2 minutes or so, or 3 minutes. But another question that comes up often, knowing that many of the folks on this call have existing systems, and certainly I did at Michigan. I had an enterprise system that I was encumbered to. Talk for a minute about data integration and how you make this work with what inevitably are already some existing systems on your campus.
I'm sorry, Robert, did you want me to take that one?
Yeah, Ron, if you would, please.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I'm sorry about that. So, being at over 800 campuses and 5,200 programs, I can't say we've integrated or worked with every student information system, but chances are we've covered a majority of them. In WebAdmit, Robert showed you the left-hand side, and we've got a great export tool that can export data from WebAdmit into any format that would be appropriate to digest by another student information system. And so it's fairly straightforward on how to do that. We didn't have time to take that demonstration to that level today, but it is straightforward to take the information out of here, and you can basically take all the data fields from WebAdmit and actually export that into a format that your IT staff perhaps tells you is, here's what we need, here's the order, this is the sequence that you should be following, and we can certainly export that and have it available. That can be exported once a day, once an hour, every 5 minutes. That's totally up to your staff. So we find that's very, very powerful, that if you want to continue to use existing systems on campus, this will integrate very nicely.
Thanks, Ron. I don't see any additional questions. I'll turn it back to you, Ron, for a closing comment or two, and then I think you'll turn it back to Keith to take us to the 2 o'clock hour.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. Certainly good information. One thing that I neglected to talk about was fee waivers, and I'll maybe take 30 seconds to talk about that before passing it over to Keith. As part of the financial model, we like to talk about that. So many programs ask us about fee waivers, and we do have that built into the system, that if we need to provide a fee waiver to a certain applicant, we've got the means and capabilities to do that, so no worries there. Okay, let me kind of wrap it up and send it over to Keith for some final comments, and then we'll break down the call. And again, I just want to thank everybody for their time today, and we would welcome any additional questions or comments. And I've got Robert's email address, phone number on the screen, although I noticed that the first digit should be 617. I apologize. And I've got my contact information. With that, Keith, I'll throw it over to you.
Thank you very much, Ron and Robert. That was an excellent presentation. I'd like to thank everybody for joining this webinar. And as Ron said, if you have any further questions, please email Ron or Robert, who put their emails up and share that in this presentation. What we'll do here at the Consortium of Universities for Global Health, we're going to go back to our schools and ask them if they have any further questions and canvass our schools to see if you're interested in joining a CAS. So more to come on that. I'd like to thank Karen Lamb and Dalal Najjar here at the Secretariat for their hard work in putting this together. And once again, thank Ron and Robert from Liaison International for putting this webinar on with us. We look forward to speaking with all of you in the future. For further information about CUGH, please look at our website at cugh.org. We have some very exciting initiatives coming up, including an important workshop on October 17th to the 19th here in Washington on how to build and write grants that are successful for various funding agencies. Our conference is open for submitting abstracts and registering, and there's much more happening here at CUGH. So again, www.cugh.org for more information about the CAS and for more information about our activities. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and we look forward to speaking with you very soon. Bye-bye for now.